everybody, we have reached the end of another year. New Year's Eve is upon us. It'll be the last day of 2014, maybe the first day of 2015 when this goes up. It's currently the 30th, and it feels very strange to me. 2015 is going to be a huge year for me because I'm going to be studying abroad and all this stuff, so it's going to be quite the interesting time. But before we get there, I wanted to do a year in review, sort of wrap up, favorites, all that kind of thing for 2014. Let's get started. What is the total number of books you read this year? I read an astounding 56. I'm super proud of myself. I wanted to get to 60, but I kind of slacked off a little bit in the middle of this week because I needed a break. And so I got very close, and that's more than I have read in a year in a very long time. So I'm very, very proud of that. Because it is the 30th, I'm going to assume that by the end of tomorrow, I will have finished Half-Blood Prince and Deathly Hallows, and so I'm going to include them in this as though I've already finished them because I'm very confident that by the time this goes up, I will have. And how about total number of pages? According to Goodreads, the total number of pages is 20,879. I read quite a few chunkers this year. Did you have any rereads? Yes, I did. I reread 12 books this year. All of the Harry Potter series and all of the Hunger Games trilogy, which brings me to 10, and then The Giver and Graceling. What was the longest book you read this year? The longest book I read this year was The Wise Man's Fear by Patrick Rothfuss, which comes in with a total of 1,107 pages, which is crazy. How about the shortest book you read this year? The shortest book I read this year was Alice in Wonderland by Lewis Carroll, and this is a giant bind-up of a bunch of Alice-related stories, but that book itself is only this long. It's pretty short. I think on Goodreads it said it was like 92 pages. I'm not sure. This edition, it's 120. It's quite short. What is the oldest book you read this year? And I mean publication date, not how long you've owned it. That would be Frankenstein by Mary Shelley, which came out in 1818, I believe, or something like that. How about the newest book you read this year? That would be The Museum of Extraordinary Things by Alice Hoffman, which came out in February of this year. How many series did you start for the first time this year, and how many did you finish for the first time this year? I started 12 series for the first time. Like, I went through and read the first book in a series for a whole bunch of different series, and then didn't continue with most of them yet. 3 of them I know I won't continue, the rest I think I will. But then I also finished 6 series for the first time. But for those 6 series, only one of them actually I started and finished. The rest I had started a while back and then finally got around to finishing. So there's very little overlap actually between those 2 groups. Did you participate in any readathons or read-alongs, and how many? I did. I actually did 4 of each. For the readathons, I did the Christmas Booktubeathon, the Summer Booktubeathon, the Winter Rereadathon, and the Harry Christmas to You. For the read-alongs, I did Vicious with the Little Book Club, Mockingjay and the Night Circus with Booksplosion, and then again the Harry Christmas to You. How many booktube videos did you make this year? This is my very first year making videos. I've been doing it for about 6 months now, which blows my mind. And I made 44, which is crazy, and I'm pretty proud of that. What were the top genres that you read? As usual, I mainly stuck with fantasy and sci-fi, but I actually want to work on that quite a bit next year and branch out a little bit more. I think the best fantasy book that I read this year was definitely Name of the Wind. It was my favorite one. I really, really am enjoying the series. I can't wait to see where it goes. It was great. I really enjoyed that one. And I think the best sci-fi book I read is actually an old one, and probably an old classic for sci-fi, at least. It was introduced to me in a class all about fantasy and science fiction, and it was The Left Hand of Darkness by Ursula K. Le Guin. I really enjoyed it. It was a pleasant surprise. What was the most unique book you read this year? I'm gonna go with The Lover's Dictionary for this one, just because I've never seen anyone write in this format before. It's set up like a dictionary, but instead of definitions for the words, you get like anecdotes from the narrator's life, and I just thought that was really cool. What were some sort of unexpected gems that you came across this year? There were actually quite a number of these this year. There are a bunch of books that I had around or I read because of read-alongs or whatever that I knew almost nothing about going in and then ended up really enjoying. The first one was Death Watch by Ari Berg. I picked this up randomly because I liked what was on the back of the book, I guess. Had really no expectations for it all, had no idea what to expect, and ended up really liking it. It's a very cool atmospheric ghost story sort of thing, and it's actually a series. I need to read the other 2. The next one was Hard-Boiled Wonderland and the End of the World by Haruki Murakami. It was my first Murakami book ever. I was introduced to it because I was in a class about fantasy and science fiction, and I really liked it. I had no idea what to expect from this book or this author, and I really, really enjoyed it. I definitely want to get my hands on some more Murakami at some point in the near future. Another one was Wonder by R.J. Palacio. I think my mom had it recommended to her, or she found out about it because she was substitute teaching. She read it, loved it, gave it to me to read, and I bawled my eyes out. This book is so, so sweet. I think everyone should read it. It's a middle grade book, but trust me, like, everyone could love love this. Another one was The Golem and the Genie by Helen Wecker. This was a cover buy for me, really. I was just peeking around in a bookshop and I saw it, read the back, looked interesting, picked it up, and it was a bit slower than I had been reading beforehand. I've been reading a lot of YA, and so to kind of slow down and meander through the streets of old New York was really fun, and seeing these two mystical beings being stuck in New York and how they cope with that, it was just really fun. I really enjoyed this one. And then the last one was Vicious by V.E. Schwab. I read it for a read-along with a little book club, and it was my first anti-hero book, and I really enjoyed it. It was very, very interesting. The characters were dislikable in the most likable way. I don't know, it was strange. Like, you hate them because they're bad people, but you also are rooting for them, and it's a very strange mix of feelings. What were some books you read this year that got added to your favorites list? My favorites of 2014. There are a lot of books I really enjoyed, but only a few that actually made like the favorites cut. And the first one was obviously Fellowship of the Ring. I grew up with these movies. I love them to death. We actually just watched the third one last night because seeing the third Hobbit in theaters made us want to watch Lord of the Rings again. But I'd never read them. And so finally, for the first time this year, I read the first one. I'm going to finish the other two in 2015. And of course I loved it. Another one, again, was The Name of the Wind by Patrick Rothfuss. I'm not actually sure if I like the first one or the second one better now that I think of it, but I love them both. I fell in love with the series completely this year. Another one was Bitter Blue by Kristen Cashore, which is the third book in the Graceling Realm series. I just really loved getting to really entrench myself in the city with Bitter Blue and solve all these puzzles and everything else. I just had a really good time reading it. And then of course I just talked about Wonder. Wonder is definitely on that list. It blew me away. And then lastly, The Night Circus by Ellen Morgenstern. This came out of nowhere. Again, I read it for a Booksplosion. It looked interesting, but I did not expect to fall so in love with it. It was such a cool atmospheric ride. I hadn't felt so immersed in a place in a very long time while reading. It was just such a cool experience. Did you have any big firsts with reading this year? Yeah, I had a couple. It's my first time picking up a manga. It was a Legend of Zelda manga, so it's not really delving into that terrain that much, but you know, the format was there, and I'd very much like to sort of delve into this world a little bit more, as in the world of manga, not Legend of Zelda. I'm very well versed in Legend of Zelda. Two of my roommates are very into the manga and anime scene, so it'll be no problem getting recommendations for them. I already have a couple in the back of my head. So yeah, that was fun. And then this was my first year doing BookTube, obviously, and it was my first time doing any read-alongs and readathons. So yeah, good stuff. And that was my year of reading in 2014. It's been crazy. I did not expect to read over 50 books this year. I've always loved reading, but like the past few years, I've just been busy with other things like school and whatever that just wore me down and didn't get me motivated to read on a regular basis. I sort of fell out of that habit. And so finding BookTube was what got me back into really reading consistently again. And it's just been so great. It's been a really good time, and so has BookTube. This has been really fun. There are a lot more of you watching than I ever expected to get in 6 months. You guys have just been really welcoming, so thank you for that. You've completely blown my expectations out of the water, and it's been fun, and I can't wait to continue doing that. As far as 2015 goes, I do have a couple of goals that I'll just quickly mention. They're very kind of low on purpose because I'm hoping that this is like a bare minimum that I get to, and I'd like to surpass all of them. So my sort of minimum 2015 goals are to read at least 30 books, and out of those, 2 of them have to be graphic novels, 2 have to be nonfiction, 5 have to be classics, and 1 of those has to be a Jane Austen novel, because I haven't read any Jane Austen, don't kill me. And I don't want there to be any months where I have not read a single book. I'd like to at least finish 1 book every month at the minimum, because it'd be really sad if I had a bunch of months where I didn't read anything, wouldn't it? To read a little bit more diversely, so I'd like to sort of branch out of my typical genres a little bit more, and I'd like to have more diverse authors that I'm reading as well. I want, at the bare minimum, 1/10 of what I'm reading to be by authors that are not from the US or the UK, and or also authors of color. I never noticed that I was terrible about doing that until this year, and then once it was pointed out to me, it was unacceptable. So I want to fix that. Also, BookTube wise, I'd like to make sure that even while I'm abroad, I at least have a video up a month, preferably 3 or 4, so that I'm doing it once a week. But we'll see what happens once things get busy. I might have a lot of time, I might have no time. I think that pretty much concludes it. I hope you guys have had a fantastic year. Thank you so much for watching and for giving my channel a chance and for supporting me for the past 6 months. It's been a fun time. I hope you guys have a fantastic New Year's Eve and a fantastic 2015. I will see you very soon. This has been a wrap up. My name is Jackie, and I will see you next year. Bye!